Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. Today I have with me Ben Traviss, who's joined me on Electric Evolution. Now, Ben, nice to meet you. We've spoken a couple of times on LinkedIn. We had a chat on the phone the other week, and I just want you to kind of give a little background to who you are, because in your LinkedIn it says so I know you're a customer loyalty specialist at Mercedes, aren't you? It also says you're an EV enthusiast. You're passionate about electric vehicles. So just give me a little bit of your background and how you became passionate. What do you actually do for a job, and what is your passion? How did you get here?
So at the moment, I'm a customer loyalty specialist at Sytner Mercedes-Benz. My role essentially is to speak to service customers who are coming into the retailer, and first of all, just kind of pre-call them. But I think also the main kind of communication that I have with the customer is just to let them know they could be in a great position to change. Aside from that, how I got to where I am right now I think my journey to where I am at the moment is something that I feel like a lot of people within the automotive industry are going to have, like this big realization moment. And I had that when I first started working for what was Cooper BMW and Cooper Mini. Now, they were then under the Inchcape banner. They've now been kind of moved across and bought out by Virtue, the northern sites were. And what happened was, when I was working for Stratstone Jaguar Land Rover, I used to have loads of questions about electric cars. This was back in let's say it was sort of like 2019, 2020, there or thereabouts.
So before the whole lockdown kicked.
Yeah. So sort of 2019, 2020, I was working for Jaguar Land Rover, and I didn't find that there was a lot of information forthcoming about electric vehicles where I was. And I remember asking lots of questions and really didn't understand a lot of the terminology. I didn't understand charging times, I didn't understand battery sizes, like everything. I just hadn't got a clue, and I didn't know where to start.
It's like where I am now.
Yeah. Well, in actual, I was quite fortuitous in this kind of position, because I decided that I wanted a new challenge. So I moved to Cooper BMW at the time, and I basically accepted a role. Within a week of accepting, we went into the first lockdown.
Oh gosh!
So there was a lot of uncertainty surrounding my position. I've just signed some contracts. Are they going to honor me wanting to start? Because no one knew at the time what was going on. So I decided in that lockdown, when I was just at home waiting to start. I mean, I spent the best part of 2.5, 3 months being on furlough, which I was absolutely bowled over by the fact that they would, pay me, and they didn't really know who I was. Then I've got nothing to kind of say, I deserve to have furlough or anything like that. But they pulled the rabbit out of the hat. I was so pleased. But in that time, what I decided to do is to try and, in order to kind of repay their faith in me starting with them, and them honoring the contract and all that kind of stuff, I thought, right, this is a great opportunity now for me to really get my head into what electric vehicles are all about. I don't want to sit at home watching daytime TV. I don't want to be thinking about all the things that are going on in the news, the uncertainty, that loads of things were going on at the time. Really decided just to delve into the world of electric vehicles and start from the very beginning, and start to understand what it was all about: charging times, battery sizes, different sizes of vehicles. And obviously at the time it was very much focused on the BMW group, if you like, because that was the world that I was about to walk into. So I needed to be fully up to speed with their vehicles and what it all meant, so that by the time I did start, I would be fully confident in understanding and being able to hold a conversation about, well, actually, I'm going to be doing these type of journeys. What kind of battery size do I need? Is this vehicle going to be right for me? And before I'd started working there, I would have had absolutely no clue as to how to answer any of those questions. So I kind of put together this huge notepad of information. I watched so many videos online, so the how-to guides, things that would help me understand what customers were going to be coming to me with, because if I hadn't have done that research and I hadn't have like had that light bulb moment of actually thinking this is going to be something that people are going to talk to me about, and if I'm going to be working there as what was a product genius, I can't have a big thing on my back saying product genius and having no clue about what customers are talking about. You're obviously going to start from scratch. You're going to be picking up information all the time. So, but I just wanted to hit the ground running with EV, and I just felt like at that moment in time, something big was going to happen. Some shift was going to happen, and I just wanted to get ahead of the curve. And I'm so thankful for that downtime, because I now feel like I can help others make that journey from internal combustion engine to electric vehicle. And in actual fact, it's there's a lot of information out there which is sometimes very difficult to take on board, because what do you believe? Is this a good source? Is it, all this kind of stuff? But the journey just needs to be broken down into small chunks, and once you start to understand what it's all about, it's actually pretty easy to live with an EV. So that's kind of how I started to become so passionate about it. I just felt like at the time it was something, as I said, that was going to really take off, and I wanted to get ahead of the curve. But I think that product genius kind of title, there was a lot of pressure on me as well. So I felt like, right, I can't just kind of rest on my laurels. I've got to really get into this and really understand it.
You can't be a product genius and not be an actual genius, can you really? So for somebody like me, so my, just to kind of fill you in on my kind of need really is that I'm looking to understand about electric vehicles and what is, I want to go on the journey that you've been on, and you've been on it for kind of 3 years now, haven't you?
Yeah.
So for me, I own a business. I'm a mum, I'm a wife. For us as a family, we would like our next car to be an electric vehicle. And I think there's a number of areas. I mean, obviously, one of them is the fact that the price of electric vehicles is quite high. So, obviously, when we're talking about the rest of the UK wanting to buy electric cars, it's not always something that everybody can afford. Obviously, that's not something we can probably talk about. But with regards to what the journey that you went on, so what do I need to know? So tell me about how you got, how you kind of decided on a Mini. What about, how do I decide on battery sizes? What is it? What are the difference in all the batteries? What is it about kind of like, the range anxiety that everybody gets scared of? I know we spoke about this previously, but if you can kind of fill everybody in about kind of all of these things, I'm sure there are people out there that are in the same situation as me and kind of go, well, I don't really know where to start.
Yeah. I think when you're looking to buy a new car, whether it's new or new to you, you're always going to do your homework on the things that are really important to you. So if you're a family and if space is likely to be important, if you're going to be doing lots of longer journeys, then if tech might be important to you, so you can, when you're on those road trips and you've got access to Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all those kind of things. When it comes to electric vehicles, there are things to take into consideration which a lot of people, myself included, won't have necessarily thought about too much. Now, you've mentioned the barriers to entry. Things like price is always especially at the moment, is certainly going to be a talking point. But what I found and why I decided to go for the Mini was that when I worked at what then became BMW Virtue Mini, I worked with the Mini team. I was in and out of Mini electrics quite a bit. And I remember very vividly the first time I drove a Mini electric, and it was whilst I was working at BMW, and it was completely by accident. They'd taken some vehicles to an event that was taking place, and they were sponsoring the event. They had lots of stickers down the side of the cars and that type of thing. And I was sent with some sales executives to go and pick up some cars. They all opted for the BMWs, and what they thought was they were giving me the short straw, and that, we'll just give Ben the Mini. We're in the BMWs, of course we are. We're sales executives. Ben's a product genius. Give him the keys to the Mini, let him go. Got in this Mini electric, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, I've never driven I had driven a couple of electric vehicles before that, BMW i3s mainly, but this was just completely like, I need to know more about this. I need to know more about this car. And so that was when I was working at BMW, and then when I moved across to Mini, obviously I was kind of in and out of these cars, and I just kind of fell in love with the Mini electric. Now, one thing that's really important is at the time I was driving an Audi A1 at the time, and my kind of thoughts were, right, I'm looking, like, I'm completely sold on the Mini experience. But what I had to do is I had to go internal combustion engine Mini before Mini electric, and that was because of financial restrictions, those type of things.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was a bit gutted because I wanted that journey to start with the Mini electric. I was so like headstrong on, like, I love this car, but I needed to use the internal combustion engine vehicle as a stepping stone, and that got me used to, you know, what living with a Mini would be like. Its quirks, it's kind of, you know, the boot size, for instance, it's not the biggest. It's a Mini, of course it's not, but you get used to the vehicle and stuff. And I fell in love with that car. And then when the time was right, I thought, right, I'm going to opt for an electric car now. So in terms of jumping straight into an electric car, that wasn't my journey. It wasn't just right, okay, one day I've woken up and now I'm going to get an electric car. There has to be things that you will have to take into consideration, and it's maybe not something that people can jump into straight away.
Yeah.
To have that kind of to kind of be okay with, actually, that's where I'm going. I'd much rather be speaking to customers and people who are, it might not be for me right now, but I see the benefits and I see the logic and I see why it's great to have an electric car, but at the moment it's just not right for me. My girlfriend's in exactly that position right now. She is all aboard the electric train. She's like, yeah, let's do it. Like, but at the moment I can't do it because of the vehicles that are out there and the costs and that type of thing. So I get it. I understand. In terms of things that, you know, you mentioned battery sizes and things like that previously. I've had this conversation with a few people now. And I think that when it comes to range anxiety, what we find is that a lot of customers will, first time around, opt for a vehicle with the biggest battery because there's always going to be that initial range anxiety. What I can say with some conviction now is that the Mini electric, being one of the smallest electric vehicles out there with one of the smallest ranges, and that's been very well documented, what we kind of find is that customers will often compare like-for-like experiences with an internal combustion engine vehicle. So, for instance, how much range a vehicle has, because when you fuel your car, you know, you're seeing 300, 400 miles plus, maybe, depending on what kind of vehicle you have, and that will always be compared with the process of charging a car, how long it takes, and also what the range is likely to be. The best way, really, that I can speak to people about owning an electric vehicle is, it's not a like-for-like experience. It's not something that you can just say, well, I get this all the time. So I get a customer that says to me, yeah, but Ben, okay, fine, I hear what you're saying about electric vehicles, but I can go into a fuel station and it takes me 4 or 5 minutes to fuel my car. I can go in and pay, and away I go, I'm away. Whereas you're telling, well, what I've heard, that's a great one. What I've heard is that there aren't any places to charge a vehicle. It's going to take me the best part of a day to charge my car. Honestly, the amount of things you hear, it's unbelievable. But I think what the best thing and the best advice that I can give is, it's about breaking it down to a daily or a weekly requirement, rather than thinking, right, I've got 400 or 500 miles to play with now, I don't have to fuel for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Great, fantastic. But in actual fact, when you go and do that, you're going to be paying a lot of money at the fuel pumps to be able to have that luxury. But also, you know, own an electric vehicle, if you can charge at home, then, you know, you're going to be making some massive savings. And at the moment, I'm reaping the rewards of that. I think that from a weekly and a daily requirement, rather than looking at how much range do I have in my electric vehicle, it's how much range am I going to need today? If I can charge at home, I'll charge later on. How much range do I need? So my vehicle at the moment, my Mini electric, Mini State, the revised figures are between, I think it's up to 143 miles on a full charge. In the winter, that's going to. But the thing is that for me, I think that 143 miles, I feel like I could get to Cornwall and back on 143 miles. My whole kind of I've just completely changed the way that I look at this now. So I can charge at home. I'm lucky. It's a complete luxury, and I get it. And not everyone's going to be able to do this. But my commute to work is 11 miles to work, and it's about 11 miles back, depending on which way I get home. If I need to charge every day at home, I could, but I don't need 500 miles of range, because my daily requirement's like, 20 something miles a day. And if I've got that, knowing that if I need to charge it maybe once or twice a week, then great. If it's going to cost me £5-6 a week to be able to charge, I'd much rather do that than paying 50, 60, 70 pounds when I was fueling my mini internal combustion engine vehicle. So yeah, I think it's all about you're breaking things down into very small chunks. And if you're worried about range, I've done a couple of road trips in my mini electric now, and it's surprisingly easy. People talk to me about what their public infrastructure is like. If you know where to charge, and you know the reliable kind of charging networks, I guess, then you're laughing. Honestly, it's absolutely fine. And the thing is, when you get to sort of moving into thinking about an electric vehicle, like I said earlier, you are going to sort of be tempted to opt for the bigger battery version, because you are going to have that range anxiety. But bigger batteries, if you're not going long distances regularly, it's a heavier car, it's not as efficient, you aren't necessarily going to get the rewards. And I think it's all about qualification at the sales stage. If someone that you're talking to knows about electric cars and knows their what they can offer with their brand, they should be telling you, look, let's break it down. What's going on? What's most important to you? Let me know what it is. And if you're doing longer journeys every now and again, a smaller battery electric vehicle is going to be absolutely fine for you. You just need to plan a little bit for the longer journeys, and just embrace it.
I was going to say, and I suppose over time, it's a bit like the mobile phone. I remember back in the 1990s, my boss, I'm originally from up north, from Halifax, and my boss at the time, he had this massive big mobile phone that was like yay big, it was just huge.
Yeah.
And I suppose over time, the technology is going to improve. I mean, look at mobile phones now. The size of them have decreased so much. I mean, some of them have got bigger, and now my eyesight's not as good as it used to be. I've got a bit of a bigger phone anyway. But I'm assuming in the next kind of 5, 10, 20 years, the battery, kind of technology is going to change so much more, so that batteries are going to be smaller, and therefore, theoretically, it's a bit like, I've got an iPhone where you can have different variants of iPhone, so, and I know you can get different variants of battery electric vehicles, and get better range with those, but again, like with the iPhone, you pay more for those higher specifications, don't you?
Yeah. And I think that, it's interesting that you mentioned the phone kind of analogy, because I think a lot of customers that I speak to are very kind of headstrong in that they have to buy a car outright, and they see no benefit of buying an electric car right now outright. And to be honest, I wouldn't buy an electric car outright right now. I think because of the how fast technology is kind of moving forward. You mentioned the smaller batteries, and as time goes on, they're going to be able to give us hundreds of miles of range, which is great. But how do most people kind of live with a mobile phone? It's on a contract. You kind of rent a phone. And with an electric car, because things are progressing so quickly, it makes no sense to buy that outright, because in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, the technology will have moved on further again. So sort of leasing a vehicle makes a lot of sense, especially at the moment when things are progressing so much. And as I said, when people talk to me about, well, in 2 or 3 years' time, electric vehicles are going to be able to do 300, 400, 500 miles easy. Well, yeah, they are, but you're in a position whereby you can part exchange your vehicle and get on board with the latest technology. It's how people live their lives now. There's a lot of things that people have on finance. A lot of people will have insurance and stuff like that they'll pay monthly, service and that they'll pay on a monthly basis, service plans and stuff. So it's just another one of those things. But I have to be conscious that it doesn't work for everybody. The leasing side of things and the monthly payment doesn't work for everyone, and I totally get that. But in order to kind of safeguard yourself and for the finance companies to be taking all the risk. When it comes to electric vehicles, it is, I would definitely recommend that to be a consideration. But, you know, for me, I think that when we're looking at electric vehicles and what it's all about, we talked about how important it is to look at it in smaller chunks. And as I said, I think right at the beginning of our conversation, you know, it's about having that kind of top 5, top 10 things that are really important to me. And if range is one of those things, then let it be part of your buying process. Let it be part of the way that you're going to purchase a vehicle. And if that's really important to you, bigger batteries might be the option for your first time around. I've kind of taken the difficult route in not opting for a bigger battery version. One, because the Mini don't offer that right now. I know that the next generation of Mini electrics will offer a smaller battery and a bigger battery, which is certainly going to open up their customer base. But if you feel like you need to do that, then great. But for me, I think that there's a really exciting app that's emerging at the moment called EV Curious. And now EV Curious are a platform where they have a free app. You put in you're obviously just going to sign up and things like that. But what it will do is it will actually track your journeys every single day. If you leave it running in the background, what it will then do is it will then show you how much distance you're covering on a daily or a weekly basis. And that's I'm starting to really get on board with that, because for me, that's such an exciting leap forward, and it will help a lot of people who are thinking about owning an electric vehicle. What is it that I actually fundamentally need? Do I really need 400 miles? Do I really need that? Do I really need the bigger batteries? And am I really going to want to pay a lot more money for a bigger battery version? Whereas in actual fact, this app, it says I might only be doing maybe 100 to 150 miles a week. And yes, I can charge at home. So why would I opt for the bigger battery? It's just these kind of things are out there to reassure us that actually we don't need to spend more money than we need to. Yes, the vehicles are much more in terms of the equivalent of internal combustion engine vehicles right now, but apps like EV Curious are just something that I think is a phenomenal leap forward. And for you to actually be able to go, well, I might be able to save myself a lot of money here. Those are the type of things that I think more and more people need to know about.
That's a brilliant idea. I think that's a fantastic idea. I will share that in the both the platforms that we're actually broadcasting this on. What I wanted to ask you was, you know, you've been talking about charging at home. So how are you charging at home? And I know that you can't just plug in an electric car like you would a toaster. Do you know what I mean? Or you can kind of do that, but it'd probably take like 2 days to charge, that kind of thing. So what or like my electric toothbrush tends to take about a full day to blooming charge up. But so what did you end up doing with regards to charging at home? What have you installed, and how's it work? How long does it take, and what amount of electricity are you actually using, kind of thing?
So when it comes to my home charger, I was lucky enough to be right at the tail end of when the government were offering some grants. So there was a specific route that I had to go down in terms of filling out a specific form. I needed to provide information about and you will still need to do this, by the way. So you'll need to provide information about your kind of fuse box, where you're looking for the, for the home wall box to actually be situated. There needs to be considerations in terms of how far away it is from your Wi-Fi, etc. So there's a few different things that you're going to need to kind of look at. I decided, just like an electric vehicle, that there is a world out there of chargers. If you can charge at home, the whole conversation about where do you start, I mean, it's a very valid question. For me, I just think that the research that I did led me to HyperVault, which is the wall box that I went for. I'd seen some videos about it online. I did some more research into it. They've got an amazing customer service team who were very reassuring. Look, we do that. This is what we do. We don't do this as part of a bigger thing. Like we only make wall boxes. They'd had some videos with, there was a video on Fully Charged, which I watched. And then there was, I was watching at the time, and that's how I found them, an electrician's YouTube page. Their company's called Artisan Electrics. They're getting really big on YouTube, and they actually went to the HyperVault headquarters and sort of sat down with the team and talked about why, you know, what they're not just what's happening right now. The reason why I love HyperVault is that their thoughts and their research and development is all about the future as well. So there's going to be a lot of vehicle to grid, VTG, where, for instance, that you can then take energy out of your vehicle and put it back into the grid. And there's loads of things that they're looking at from a
there's some amazing stuff going on, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And what they're looking to do is they're also looking to, for instance, share the load in your street. So if another vehicle needs the electric, then yours isn't going to get charged until, you know, theirs is ready. So there's so many things out there. And the great thing about HyperVault for me is that, you know, the actual physical box itself doesn't and shouldn't need to be renewed. It's all software updates over the air. So as soon as things become live, they can send it to your box over the air and you won't have to worry about it. It'll just happen. And, you know, things like that. I think that they're really looking ahead. And for me, I was completely sold at that point. But as I said, I think that there are lots of chargers out there. And I think that a lot of manufacturers that provide and make electric vehicles will tend to have a preferred partner. So they might often sort of like edge you a bit more towards kind of, well, we work with these people. But what I would always say is that you're not obliged to take their recommendations. Just like electric vehicles, I would certainly shop around. And there's lots of different budgets out there. There's lots of different price points of charges as well. So that's certainly going to come into play. But yeah, for me, I just felt very comfortable with HyperVault. People that I work with off the back of my recommendations have HyperVault chargers, and they've had absolutely no problems with theirs. If there's been any questions or queries or things haven't worked, for instance, like a few months ago, I actually did an overnight charge and it didn't charge. And I was like, right, I got back on the phone to them. They sorted it straight away. Like, they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So for me, it's definitely a world in itself of chargers. But I think I would just encourage you to do research and not necessarily just take the first thing that's handed to you and go, well, we work with these people. We'll go, actually, well, there might be other options out there for you.
What about installation then? So who do you get to install something like this? Is there like a network of install? Like you said, so you say, no, we work with these people. Do you tend to get like a kind of, you know, the companies working together with installers, or is it? I'm assuming it's nothing you can do yourself, is it? You've got to actually get somebody to actually install it attached to your house.
Yeah, and so I think since I got my charger installed, there have been a slight difference in terms of how this works. So what tends to happen and what my understanding of it is when I contacted HyperVault and said, look, I'm all in, let's do it, what do I need to do? They have a network of approved installers in different parts of the country, and they said, look, we will now give you the details of someone that's like a company that is relatively close to you, and they'll come out and they'll do a survey and they'll have a chat to you and all that kind of stuff. And they kind of just went, there's the information, you contact them, we know that they're great people and they're trusted. So, but I think as far as I'm aware, if you wanted to contact an automotive sort of electrician, if you like, who installs these on a regular basis, then there's no reason why you couldn't go to one of those people. But for me, I just think that if you've got a charger in mind, I would contact the manufacturer and just say, look, I want to do this. What would you recommend that I do next? And take their advice and then go down that route. And as I said, the people that installed my wall box were absolutely brilliant. They did it within sort of 3 or 4 hours. It was a minor inconvenience, and then they showed me how it all works. So it pairs with an app, and I can lock my charger as well. One of the big myths out there is that, you know, if I leave my house and I go to work and my charger's there, can someone just drive up into my driveway and plug it in and start? That is a thing, and I had that when I first started learning about electric vehicles. You can lock the charger from the app and stuff as well. There's loads of things that you can do within the app. So for me, it's just a really easy experience, and I think that the YouTube kind of research that I'd done just put my mind at rest. And then obviously a conversation with HyperVault themselves was just like, made a lot of sense.
It sounds like a good way to go. So what you were saying earlier about so you have to be connected to Wi-Fi for any updates and things like that, is that right?
I think depending on the charger, depending on how it receives updates, depending on the setup, I would say that having Wi-Fi access is very important. I'm lucky in that where my actual sort of router is within my home, where my charger is very, very close, so it's not an issue. But if for instance, if you have questions about, you know, where to put the wall box, this is what these kind of electricians are all for. They'll be able to recommend. They'll have. Because when I wanted to have my wall box on the side of my home, they actually did some tests as to sort of what's the signal strength like where you want it, and do we need to kind of make some adjustments and things like that. So they tend to be really, really helpful anyway. So I would definitely recommend, if you are looking to get a home charger installed, just to make use of their experience and their expertise. And if you are looking to go down that route, they'll be able to kind of come over and give you that kind of site survey just to reassure you. Or if it's not a plan A, then they'll be able to kind of recommend a plan B and how much that's likely to cost.
So Ben, if people want to find out a bit more, because obviously, you know, we can draw so much information out of you from this. So if people want to find out a bit more and talk to you, where's the best place to contact you?
I would say if you're on LinkedIn, it's probably a really good place to find me. So it's just Ben, Ben, and Traviss with 2 S's. It's quite a bizarre spelling, but I am there. And if you find my profile, you'll see me talking about my mini electric probably a fair bit. So you'll definitely know that it's me. But if you're on Instagram, if LinkedIn's not where you are and you're on Instagram, it's at #mini. That's where you can find me, and I respond to all messages through that as well. So yeah, just come find me. I'd love to have a chat.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ben. It's been a joy talking to you, and I know I will get you back on here again.
That's very kind. It's been really good talking to you.
It's been brilliant, and I really appreciate it. So thank you ever so much, and I shall see you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You've been watching Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon, and you'll receive all of our weekly videos. Thanks for watching. See you soon.